End of a long day of work. We support the head on the pillow and deliver us to a quiet night, both physical and mental absolute rest. Or so we think. It is true that the dream has repair functions, and is essential for life. But if we think it is like putting the switch off and up at Garnos, we cannot be more wrong. While we sleep, our mind and body are busy performing tasks behind our consciousness. And the result is not always pleasant. Here, from the minute we close our eyes, what happens to us or can happen overnight sleep. Minute 0 light sleep phase 1. There is no reason being paranoid about bad breath. Bad breath is not so much a threat as you think. We relaxed and we slowly sink into the darkness. Our muscles are loosened, breathing and pulse slow down and eyes begin to move very slowly. The brain changes tuning of alpha waves to theta. It is phase 1 sleep, a slight numbness that comes and goes in waves. Any external interference such as noise can awaken. But the discomfort not only comes from outside. Suddenly, in the limbo of sweet slumber, a jolt leg takes us out of the torpor violently. Myoclonic spasms are often accompanied by a disturbing feeling of falling into the void we try to avoid with a hint of a jump, and that translates into a kick to who sleeps with us. According to the International Classification of Sleep Disorders ICSD, 60 to 70% of the population suffers from myoclonic jerks, but this is a normal process that does not always prevent sleep. However, its meaning is uncertain. According to one theory, it is the part of the brain responsible for waking struggling to keep control. A curious hypothesis argues that it is an evolutionary other, when sleeping in the trees and ran the risk of falling. The sensation of falling is one of the hypnagogic hallucinations. We experience the transition from wakefulness to sleep and can introduce a varied menu of visual, auditory or other, not always pleasant sensations. A particular form is what is popularly known as Tetris effect. The suffering addicts this game, when closed their eyes and saw the pieces fall. Interestingly also it occurs with other games like chess, or any activity that leaves an intense sensory footprint, like skiing or surfing. Another hallucinatory manifestation in the form of powerful noise, like an explosion, the doorbell, a slamming door, a shot or any other crash. Actually the sound only exists in our minds, although the name of the phenomenon is not exactly reassuring. Head syndrome explosiva. The clinical psychologist at Washington State University USA Brian Sharpless notes that still little research, although prevalence figures are handed around 10% or higher. A recent study by Sharpless has revealed that not only affects those over 50 years as it was believed, but also young people. According to this expert explains to the Huffington Post, the syndrome is physically harmless. It only becomes a problem if someone suffers an extent that affects sleep, or anxiety. You have an episode, or mistakenly believe that something serious happens. Sharpless says that sometimes disappears, simply informing the patient that there is no reason to worry. In most cases, it is simply an unusual experience that occurs from time to time. Minute 10 phase 2. If we have managed to overcome the first stage and we look forward to continuing, about 10 minutes after we enter phase 2, the longest and relatively quiet, we lose the awareness of our environment, the eyes stop moving, heart rate and breathing are gentle, body temperature and blood pressure are reduced, and the muscles remain relaxed. Our brain, free fantasies and hallucinations, falls into a haven of calm theta waves, only interrupted by some sprinting called spindles and sudden jumps called complex sleep K. This takes us about 50% of the entire cycle. Here we are safe. 60 minutes, deep sleep phase 3 after a quiet year for phase 2, An hour after falling asleep we enter deep sleep, with occasional surveying of snoring are more frequent in this period. In phase 3 recharge the batteries, the hormonal system and our brain readjusts sways in a slow delta waves, broad and deep waves. It seems that we are finally sunk in that placid rest it costs us wake up, and sleep soundly the rest of the night. Nothing is further from reality, the worst is yet to come. Here begins the favorite territory parasomnias, sleep disorders. This is the phase where we used to wet the bed when we were kids. But this is nothing more than a minor inconvenience compared with the ability to incorporate us suddenly in the night, sweating and screaming in terror. No nightmares, which will appear at a later stage, but something even more sinister, which occurs mainly in childhood and usually subsides in adolescence, night terrors. Up to 5% of the children suffer, falling to 1 to 2% in adulthood. According to Dr. Suresh Kotigal, a pediatric neurologist at the Center for Sleep Medicine at the Mayo Clinic USA, a comprehensive study revealed that up to 80% of children may suffer some parasomnia isolated, and not to worry if it's isolated phenomena. For parents, a night terror is a harrowing experience, especially when children seem not recognize and do not respond to attempts to comfort. What to do in these cases? Kotigal offers this newspaper instructions for parents. They should try to remain calm, make sure the child is not in an environment where it can be damaged, such as near a ladder. Terror will run its course and stop, usually in few minutes. No medication or intervention is required. In fact, trying to wake the child could worsen their behavior. Fortunately, the most common is that the next morning the young do not remember anything about the episode. A similar case is sleepwalking, also most often affects children. Sleepwalkers wandering in a state of altered consciousness, during which they can make imaginary or real, as simple as opening a drawer or as complex as house-cleaning tasks. Curious cases have been described as that of a woman who sent emails. According to the ICSD, no reports of homicides and suicides committed during an episode. Actually, sleepwalkers themselves who are most at risk, especially when they feel like cooking, go out or drive. Kotigal advised not to try to awaken, but just try to lead them to an environment where they are safe. In some cases, the sleepwalker has a single fixed goal, sex. This variant, called sexsomnia, has obvious complications, since there have been sexual assault and rape. Another particular situation is sleepwalkers, with eating disorder engaged in plundering the refrigerator, consuming raw or frozen foods. Less harmful to themselves and others are some locusts, who merely talk in my sleep. His repertoire can range from the unintelligible babbling to, for example, narrating football matches. It was very popular on the internet, the case of the British Adam Leonard, whose wife recorded and even became business phrases, that her husband spoke in a dream. I tear the skin off and bathe my rawness in vinegar, before spending time with you. 80 minutes, phase REM, more upon completion of phase 3, it is over. What we mean by rest. Suddenly, breathing and heart rate are shaken, eyes shoot in all directions, the penis or clitoris harden, and our brain goes into a frenzy of activity that justifies the nickname of this period, paradoxical sleep. But he is best known by its formal name, phase of rapid eye movement REM, for its acronym in English. Welcome to the realm of fantasy. In phase REM, more enter dreams, but nightmares. This is where we pursued the mountebank with the saw or walked naked through Constantinople. Mind to all sorts of bizarre, so vivid imaginings, that if they are sexual content can end in orgasm, a common occurrence during adolescence opens. Indeed, dreams are so real that the brain must disconnect the body, to prevent us from doing theater. During this phase our voluntary muscles are paralyzed. If they do not, we have a disorder of REM sleep behavior. According to the Academy of Sleep Medicine, the United States, this phenomenon differs from sleepwalking when the eyes are usually closed, no real sex or food, and subjects not usually leave the bed, unless, for example, do so to receive the winning pass, the touchdown, or to escape an attacker. But if the action is violent, someone could get hurt. Dr. Michael Silber, a neurologist at the Center for Sleep Medicine Mayo USA Clinic, notes that from 32 to 76% of cases result in personal injury, and that 11% of the time care is needed. The injuries include lacerations, bruises, broken limbs, and subdural hematomas, blood clots on the surface of the brain, Silber lists. But those affected may not only harm themselves, but also hurt others. 64% of bed partners report having been assaulted inadvertently, and many report damage. These can come from punching, slapping, kicking, hair pulling, and attempted strangulation. At least, those affected are easily removed from their dream world. If you can wake them safely, this is the best option, but before the classmates should stay away for their own good, says Silber. The Nightmare. John Henry Fuseli reflected in his painting The Nightmare, how sleep paralysis in other cases is just the opposite: wake up and not be able to break the stillness of REM sleep. The cause sleep paralysis is terrifying. Those affected often suffer hallucinations while monstrous apparitions that oppress their chests and prevent them from breathing. This is a phenomenon known since ancient times, as described by the Persian physician Al-Qawaini in the 10th century. Studies suggest that some hallucinations associated with this disorder are explaining some experiences considered paranormal in different cultures, such as alien abductions, attacks of incubus devils, or extracorporeal travel. And most disturbing is that according to the ICSD, between 40 and 50% of the population experiences sleep paralysis at least once in life. According to Sharpless, which in June published a book called Sleep Paralysis, Historical, Physiological, and Medical Perspectives, Oxford University Press, 2015, if you suffer an episode, it is best to try to relax, and you tell yourself that it is not dangerous. You try to repeatedly move a small part of your body to break the paralysis, such as a finger or toe, and recognize that hallucinations are not real. Minute 100. End the cycle. And back again. We finished a complete cycle of sleep, overall, between 90 and 110 minutes. At this time we wake up, and if we maybe suffer again similar to the hypnagogic hallucinations, which in this case are called hypnopompic. But they have not spent 2 hours since we went to bed, and the night is long. Typically, at the end of REM sleep, enter again in phase I, and back again. If we desire remaining after the above,